Brendan Fraser is a very unlucky actor. It's not about he playing Indiana Jones style. He often jumped without insurance on the set and ended up jumping up and down and getting various injuries. Many of Fraser's films are enjoyed by audiences, and many of his films have ratings that can't be called bad. However, these films are doing very poorly in box office. All this will eventually lead to the fact that Fraser will stop being called in promising projects and he will have to star in B-movies. Now there is news that Fraser may be back in the fold thanks to his new film directed by Darren Aronofsky, who once helped resurrect the career of Mickey Rourke. The Whale will premiere at the Venice Film Festival in August 2022. In 2008, the wrestler won Golden Lion in Venice. Maybe Fraser will get lucky, too. Meantime, let's remember career path of the beloved actor. Fraser soared from unknown guy to a famous actor with $1 million fee pretty quickly. He began his career in the very early 90s, and in 1992 the actor appeared in 2 successful films in the lead roles. These were Encino Man and School Ties. The second film was directed by Robert Mandel, who had once directed F.X. The film had a tiny budget and no one really counted on it except Robert Mandel himself. The director, when recruited actors for his movie, promised them only one thing, that after this film they wake up a movie star. This statement often remembered actor Matt Damon, who also starred in the film. Other than Damon and Fraser, Ben Affleck and Chris O'Donnell also starred in the film. For most of them, it was their first real film, except for Chris O'Donnell, who also appeared in Scent of a Woman in same year. After School Ties, careers of Fraser and O'Donnell went uphill. Best friends Affleck and Damon would take off a little later, although if they hadn't had this particular movie, perhaps their script of Good Will Hunting, with the demand that they play in it, no one would have read. The little drama was not a box office hit, but it did get its budget back, take $14 million only in US theaters. The main thing is that the audience liked the film very much and critics reacted to it quite well. Things were worse with Encino Man in this regard. Both viewers and critics gave the film mediocre ratings. Actor Pauly Shore even won a Golden Raspberry for his great role in this picture. However, with a budget of $7 million at the US box office, the film takes $40 million. It may be noted that Fraser stole the role in this movie from under Jim Carrey's nose. Little-known actor Nicholas Coppola also was very interested in the role. But the producers have chosen Fraser. 2 successful films in 1 year did their job. The actor began to flood with offers. He did not always choose the good ones, and most of the films in which he starred failed at the box office. Particularly hard blow to him was the failure of Scouts in 1994. For his participation in the film, he has already received $1.5 million. But if luck would later turn away from Fraser, in 1994, luck was on his side. Failed at the box office, the comedy The Airheads instantly became a cult in the United States. Fraser landed the role in this film after John Cusack dropped out of the project due to the protracted filming of Bullets over Broadway. Brandon was joined in the movie by Adam Sandler and Steve Buscemi. Sandler just with this film began his rise to the heights of Hollywood. In general, Fraser continued to be called for different films, and critics now did not like him very much. Apparently, the Adam Sandler stain stuck to him. After the failure of Mrs. Winterbourne, with honors, and The Passion of Darkly Noon, which was trashed by American critics, a small cloud loomed over Fraser. A couple more failures and the actor could have left on all fumes to conquer some youth comedies going straight to video. But in 1997, he starred in the most important film of his career, the Disney comedy George of the Jungle. If you look at the audience reviews, no one particularly liked the film, but it managed to make a nice box office and the critics got around Fraser. The film's budget was $55 million at the box office. George takes $175 million. But the most important thing for Fraser's career is not box office success. The actor in this movie really liked director Stephen Sommers, that one who just at this time preparing to shoot The Mummy. Sommers says he wanted an actor who wouldn't look serious in his role. The director believes that the worst thing you can have in an adventure film is a serious protagonist. There is a tale associated with this point. It is possible to meet a statement that the main role in the film was offered to Leonardo DiCaprio, just when all box office records were updated by Titanic and Leo really wanted to star in the film. But he was already signed up for movie The Beach and asked to delay his shooting a bit, so he had time to star in The Mummy, but he was turned down. The best part is that in the end, filming of The Beach was postponed after all, but Brendan had already gotten the lead role. While Mummy had its pre-production period, Fraser failed in another famous movie, Blast from the Past. This movie was released on the same day as Message in a Bottle and My Favorite Martian. Fraser lost to them at the start, taking 4th place and failing. The competitors, though they got off to a better start, also failed. The Mummy, on the other hand, was a dark horse. The film was directed by a Stephen Sommers, who had just failed at the box office with Deep Rising. The main role was played by Fraser, who also failed with 2 of his films out of 3. So, the studio cut the budget to the lowest possible value. It didn't bother Sommers, and although the studio tried to control the process, the original script of film changed a lot as the filming progressed. The director improvises with many scenes on the fly. If film had flopped, the director's career could have ended immediately, as would Fraser's career in general. But that didn't happen. The Mummy was a big hit at the worldwide box office. With a $80 million budget, in theaters movie takes $416 million. Brendan's royalties jumped to $10 million. The Mummy was one of the biggest hits of the year, but the actor's next film, Dudley Do Right, was in top 3 of the failures. If it weren't for The 13th Warrior, with which the films were released on the same day, Fraser might have even swung for the win. The $70 million comedy, which nearly starred Jim Carrey, in its initial production, earned only $9 million in theaters. At the end of first week, film couldn't even make it into the top 10. For a film with such a budget, this is a real disaster. The film ended career of director Hugh Wilson, who once directed the first part of Police Academy, Guarding Tess, The First Wives Club and Blast from the Past. He also wrote the screenplay for all of these films. Fraser was saved from career ruin by The Mummy, so it was impossible for him to perish as a director. However, he tried so hard that it's even a little surprising that his career didn't end somewhere in the early '90s. Following Dudley at the box office, Bedazzled also sank. Fraser received $10 million for his role in that film. It's not just Fraser's fee that's to blame for the comedy's budget swelling to $50 million. The fact that Brendan simultaneously starred in the movie The Mummy Returns. Due to the fact that he was available for 1 or 2 days a week, the crew had to travel around the world for Mummy, shooting scenes with the actor for his film. Bedazzled suffered greatly in the post-production phase. A lot of episodes had to be removed from film, which could not be inserted into a film with a teenage rating. Then the test screenings also resulted in having to change some scenes. For example, in one of the wishes there was a very rich Elliot, and he gave Allison a ring with a huge diamond, but she said it was cute and wouldn't accept the gift. Later, Elliot in frustration threw the ring in the fountain, in which rushed all the servants. In the test screenings the scene was met with hostility and got rid of. For the release on video some of the cut material in the picture was returned, and something like Fraser rock musician can be seen among the cut scenes in the extras. American audiences completely ignored the picture. Bedazzled takes only $37 million in United States. The world brought in another $52 million. They were unable to recoup the $50 million budget. This did not seem to be enough for Fraser. Before the Mummy sequel, another of his expensive films, Monkeybone, was released. If Dudley was one of the main failures of 1999, then Monkeybone did the same in 2001. The film's road to the big screens was a long one. At one point, Nicolas Cage and Christopher Walken could have played the lead roles. Both were assigned to the film and helped work on the script. It was said to be much darker than the final version. Because of their busyness, they dropped out of the project and Fraser joined in. After that, the script was changed. On a budget of $75 million, Monkey Bone grossed $7 million in theaters. Audience reviews of the picture hint that nothing could save this movie. And if Fraser, thanks to Mummy, did not go to conquer the small screens, then Bridget Fonda, who played the main female role in the film, was less lucky. Her career took a sharp turn for the worse. The Mummy returned to cinemas in 2001, also performed well at the box office, but the income brought less than the first film. Plus, it was badly asked for reviews by critics and audiences. Most likely, this is why the studio did not immediately collect the third part, and tried to bet on The Scorpion King. But at the box office it performed quite modestly, after which Mummy was forgotten for several years. Many believe that the second Mummy almost buried the studio itself. Although director Stephen Sommers was completely untied while working on the sequel, the studio had one condition: to shoot the film in the shortest possible time. Perhaps someone paid attention to the fact that the special effects in the film look very crude. The computer-generated Scorpion King in the finale, which was heavily criticized for its terrible quality, turned out that way because of the studio, which premiered the film very early. The filmmakers didn't have time to properly think about its design, and the special effects studio began work on Scorpion King just a couple of weeks before the film premiered. It is believed that on the set of this film, Fraser severely undermined his health. The actor in all of his films wanted to perform most of the stunts himself. This led to the fact that he injured his spine, because of which he needed surgery. Plus, he broke a couple of ribs and injured both of his knees. He subsequently had many more surgeries because of various complications. And the struggle with overweight started right there. For Second Mummy, the actor received the biggest fee of his career, $12.5 million. Something close he will still be able to knock out only on the Mummy threequel. Although the movie about the dead pharaohs gathered at the box office quite a good money, the career of Fraser suffered seriously because of the large number of other failures. He was offered either small films like The Quiet American or potential flops. The Quiet American, even with its small budget, sank at the box office. So did Looney Tunes, Back in Action and Ink Heart. The only relative success in the mid-noughties was the film Crash, directed by Paul Haggis. At the end of the noughties, Brandon could have had that legendary comeback. In 2008, two big movies starring him arrived in theaters at once: Journey to the Center of the Earth and The Third Mummy. Both films did well at the box office, but audience and critical acclaim came to the fore. A fourth film was in the works for the makers of The Mummy. The screenplay was subtitled Rise of the Aztecs. Brendan Fraser and Maria Bello have already signed on. The role of the main antagonist in the fourth film was supposed to be played by Antonio Banderas. But because of the very bad reviews from audiences and critics for the third film, the studio was afraid to start production. Instead, the Mummy reboot with Tom Cruise went into production a few years later. The picture was rumored to have been written off immediately after test screenings. Because of them, the movie was severely cut. Under the cuts were even hit action scenes. The final fight was much longer. And in the second part of the Journey to the Center of the Earth, Fraser may have starred, but the actor returned to the usual course of solid failures. And he was replaced by the new rising star of adventure films, Dwayne Johnson. It is believed that the actor's career was finally drowned by the failure of the film Furry Vengeance in 2010. After that, Brandon went to conquer the films coming out directly on video. All of them have a very mediocre score, and even in them the actor often appeared in the background. In recent years, Fraser seems to have picked up his mind and started appearing in various TV series that are quite watchable. But still, in between, glimpsed in those very amazing movies that few people know about. Returning to director Darren Aronofsky and his new film The Whale, in which Fraser will play the lead role, we would like to wish the actor good luck. He is now 53 years old and all is not yet lost. Liam Neeson became a really big star after the release of Taken, when he was already 55 years old. So, in theory anything is possible. The more so that Fraser seems to have conquered his illnesses or learned to live with them. Thanks for the attention. Subscribe to the channel and watch for new releases.